Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network, and I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association also.
My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living, and my pronouns are he, him.
All right, so we've got some movies to talk about this week, like every week.
Mm-hmm.
But before we dig into that, if you're a patron, check out our bonus episode this week, our exclusive audio, all on the rom-com 1987 classic, Moonstruck. And if you're not a patron, maybe consider joining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah,
it's fun to be a patron.
It is. Yeah, let that moon hit your eye like a big pizza pie.
Wow.
Yes. Oh boy. And just like the feisty characters in the film, we had some feisty opinions on the film itself.
Yeah, we did.
Indeed we did.
It's a good time.
Some spicy meatballs.
Yeah. I won't tell you, listeners, which one of us didn't like Moonstruck, but
one of us did not.
But one of us did not. So,
but two of us did.
Yes.
Yeah. Any spray.
But now, let's discuss some newer films. Actually, new films. New.
Yeah, new. All new this week.
We're gonna be talking about Everybody's Talking About Jamie. We're gonna talk about Kate and Martyrs Lane. That's the film we're going to kick things off with. We're going to talk about Martyrs Lane, which is a horror film. It's a British horror film written and directed by Ruth Platt. It just played a few weeks ago at Fantasia, and it is now on Shudder.
Indeed, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know it's being billed as a horror film. We should probably talk about the plot summary first, but is it really a horror film?
Yes.
I mean, it's a ghost story.
Yes, it's
sure.
a horror film.
Okay.
I would say.
Just asking questions.
Yes.
I mean, it's horrific, not in a bad way. I mean, the subject. Fuck it. I'm sorry. Please, somebody tell me what the movie is about.
Why don't you, Dave? You're already talking.
Okay. Yeah. Fucking. Hi, Jesus. Okay. So I apologize in advance for the Imdb summary, which is actually 2 sentences, one with a semicolon, 3 sentences. Leah, 10, lives in a large vicarage. What a great word.
Mm-hmm.
Full of lost souls and the needy. In the day, the house is bustling with people. At night, it is dark, empty, a space for Leah's nightmares to creep into. A small nightly visitor brings Leah comfort, but soon she will realize that her little visitor offers knowledge that might be very, very dangerous.
All right.
Accurate.
Yeah, actually,
Very
I would
dangerous.
say that's accurate.
You go first.
Yeah, and relatively specific for an IMDb plot summary.
But also not too spoilery for an IMDb. So yeah, it kind of struck a very, very good balance, which makes me think it was a press rep who wrote that description.
Probably.
It wasn't some rando fan who was like, I know what Martyrs Lane is about. So it's about martyrs who live on a lane.
Right.
Okay.
It wasn't Dave C's Movies 52.
I've been outed as Dave C's Movies 52. God damn it.
Dave, are you the one leaving all those bad synopses on IMDb?
I am.
I knew it.
Little girl. Well, this is spoiler piece. So should I just say what the horror is?
Yeah, this is spoiler piece. That's what we do.
Dave C's Movies 52. The ghost, the visitor who's coming at night is her dead older sister she's never met. So, who died when she was the same age that the little girl, the main character, Leah, is now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I like the way that you don't really know, I kind of knew that really early on, but you don't know it for sure until later on, much later.
Yeah. This movie is really interesting because I wasn't surprised by any of it, and I knew it was the little sister, or her sister immediately.
Yes. Same.
But it worked for me more than it didn't work for me, even though I saw all the beats playing out, and I also didn't really buy that. Like at the end, when mom has to face up to acknowledging her dead older child, that the ghost of Rachel, it's the little girl who died, becomes evil. Like, I mean, it's not like she's good, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely hints of malevolence early on.
Well, she's angry at being forgotten, right? So, you know, sure, if I were a ghost, that might make me mad too. In fact, there's a whole Pixar movie about that. But yeah. But this is the kind of shift there at the end felt more like we got to get the scares in than it did, you know, coming out of what came before it, which is a really bizarre way of saying what I just said. Somebody else talk.
I mean, one of the things that I liked was the biblical ties in the film. So like Leah lives in a vicarage, which was a term I was not familiar with, but easy enough to figure out. Like her father is the minister at the local church. So they live in the house that's like next to the church. And so I liked the biblical ties, like, Leah, her older sister that died was Rachel, her other sister's Rebecca. Their mom's name is Sarah, right? Or am I misremembering that? So yeah, I like the kind of like biblical allegory and the idea of like the mom having, like Leah being like the unwanted sister and like not unwanted, but you know what I mean? Like, the mom has such affection.
Unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah, has such affection for Rachel. She has this locket that she wears and she keeps a lock of Rachel's hair in it. And there's this whole bit in the beginning where, Leah snatches the locket while the mom's in the shower and takes the hair and runs away. And then the mom is like losing her mind about what happened to the hair from the locket. And that's just like a whole to do. And then
she keeps
there's
the baby teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so yeah, so that's like another
teeth.
thing is like the ghost comes and keeps telling Leah, that thing that you took and you lost, because she freaks out and like throws it out the window when her mom is like coming through the hair. She throws out the window. That thing you lost is in this place, and so she keeps going to these places and finding like artifacts essentially and these little like beads with letters on them that eventually ended up spelling out Rachel's name.
Yeah. You think it's spelling out Leah because all those letters are in Rachel, and then, and then it's like, oh no, it's spelling out Rachel. Yeah, this is a hard movie for a parent to watch, I have to say.
I was wondering how you were going to handle.
I think that's part of the reason I kind of, you can sort of see everybody's point of view in this. You understand why mother is, for lack of a better term, well, we'll just say she's destroyed. Let's use that word.
That's an accurate term.
Yeah. You understand why Bex, the older sister, is older sister-ish in that kind of like sort of way, but also older sister-ish in trying to protect Leah from, things she doesn't know about. And also you understand why Leah feels left out, and how Dad, even though he's a man of God, is sort of checked out, which is makes perfect sense that his name is Thomas, Doubting Thomas. But also the scene that really struck me as being, I don't know what you would call it, when Mom and Leah go to the other person's house, and then Mom sees the guy who like ran over.
Oh my God, yes.
Rachel and killed her. And you don't know that's you at that point, you don't know that's how Rachel died. You learn that later. But when the mother sees him, I was just like, well, this guy has something to do with her death, obviously. And that's kind of, all the beats are kind of telegraphed, unfortunately. But I think the performances overall were really effective, and the tone was pretty consistently dread-ish. And that part when the baby choked on the button really made me sad, but at least he was okay.
That is sad. I also thought it was incredibly sad that when all the rabbits' babies were dead.
Oh yeah, that was
awful.
That was rough to see, because you knew there was nothing good that was going to come from that. Like, oh, there's the rabbit, it's pregnant. Like, there's just going to be something that goes wrong. I mean, I was glad the dog didn't get hit by a car, because I thought that was also going to happen.
I was expecting that too. Jesus.
It's like,
yeah.
Can we get through?
Well, now you know why the sister freaked out so much. Why Bex was like, because the road is where people die in her family.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked this. And it's interesting, Dave, because you're talking about how you saw everything coming and the beats are really telegraphed. And I agree. I don't disagree at all. I also saw pretty much everything coming. But to me, that didn't, and I'm not saying you said this, but that did not detract from my enjoyment at all. In fact, it actually made me enjoy it more because I felt like it really reified how unsettling and eerie and creepy the aesthetic was, but also knowing what's coming down the pipeline made it kind of more dread-inducing. So I actually,
for sure,
so I think in a lesser film it wouldn't work, but I think in this film it actually works tremendously to its benefit, knowing what's coming or getting a sense of what's coming. And I thought the performances were great. I thought the two little girls, Leah and Rachel, are fantastic.
They were so good. They're so
good. They feel like real kids. They don't feel too precocious. They feel like very complex. And I really liked that they have this, interesting relationship where like Rachel's like, we're friends, right? And this is after she scared the shit out of Leah. And it's like, okay. But, you know, things are complicated. Kids are complicated. Death is complicated. And I really like that. And another thing, speaking about the aesthetic that I liked so much, and also we talked about this when we talked about Moonstruck on our Patreon episode, but the use of mirrors here is outstanding. They're constantly being used. Like we see the mother's reflection in the mirror when Leah enters her room. Then we often see Leah looking in mirrors. And then at the end of the film, when she's seeing her mother and she's seeing her mother go out the window with Rachel, it's through a mirror, like parts of it. So, which is interesting too, because the mother says that when Rachel died, and when she's explaining to Leah like what happened, and she's like, Rachel died, and then you came out, and I went into labor, and it was like I went through a mirror, and Rachel was gone, and you were here in my life, and that's like such a jarring shift to lose one child and then have another be born. It's like God, but this is so eerie and tragic, and I love emotional horror films, and this really reminded me, in its emotional core and dealing with grief and dealing with family dynamics, of The Babadook and Relic in really great ways. So I thought this was great.
Yeah. One thing I'm going to throw in, I also liked how Rachel was a little bit more decomposed every time she showed up. That was touch. Like super creepy.
And also like when she's she's like, I have wings. My angel wings are coming. And you see this like bloody nubs.
Like exposed muscle. And that was gross. I
felt so bad I'm sorry, Evan. I just felt so bad for Rachel. She's always like, oh, I'm so cold. I just need to warm up. And that just broke my heart when she said that like 3 or 4 times. And it really made me sad.
I was going to say, I liked this movie, but I didn't love it. And it took me a while, I think, to kind of parse through some of the things that I didn't care for. But I think some of it has to do with the pacing. When I was watching this movie, it felt much longer than an hour and a half. It seemed to crawl for me. I think it was appropriately, tense, full of dread, but it really crawled for me. And I think one of the other pieces that didn't work for me was the kind of, I didn't like the jump scare pieces, like those quick jolt dream sequences that kind of like blended into reality. It didn't work for me. I don't think it was effective. Like the mixture of these like dream sequences plus the jump scares, it kind of like took me out of it. But I liked the rest. I liked the biblical allegory. I liked the performances. I thought that the kids were well done, well drawn. And I like the scene, late in the film where she's talking to her mom, and it's just the two of them, and she's getting the lowdown. It felt like a real honest conversation between a mother and a daughter, and I appreciated like how candid she was and explaining it to her in a way that she could be real and frank about what happened and her emotions, but also not heaping them on a kid in a way that the kid couldn't like process or understand. So I did like that aspect of the movie.
That is interesting. I'm glad you brought up the jump scares because it's so interesting that I found the most effective, I wouldn't say scary, but the most effective parts as far as being unnerving were not the jump scares. They were the moments like where you see a strange shadow on the wall, or you see Rachel, like before we know who it is, you see a girl with feathers on her back kind of enter the frame and then very quickly leave it. And like, and these, you know, dark silhouettes and things like that. Like those are the things that I think worked most effectively.
Yeah, I agree with that. Those were the parts to me that I felt were more effective. And I wish it was more of that and less of like dream sequence jump scare pieces.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had kind of forgotten about the jump scares, which, dream sequences in movies I usually don't buy them, and I didn't buy them here, but I also didn't dislike them the same way you did. But at the same time, yeah, they weren't great. The one thing that I had a little bit of trouble with, and this is my, when I was watching the movie at the beginning, I didn't realize that Bex was Leah's older sister.
Kid?
I thought she was just some
asshole. I thought that too at first.
Older kid she knew.
Well, that's funny because I thought Leah was adopted at first.
I thought the house was like a boarding house at first. And she was just like one of the kids staying there because they were like, oh, there's some other kid that's coming to stay here. And you're going to have to give him your toys. And so I just thought they were just like all orphans or something at first. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. That guy is her mom. Or sorry, that woman is her mom. And that guy who's like at the church is her dad.
I was confused at first, but but then it all unfolded.
Yeah, once it fell into place, it was like, oh, okay. But there were definitely like in the first couple of scenes, I was like, what's going on with them and the cake? And why is that cake that's been thrown around, by the way, why is it in one piece still in that box? But
you're asking the hard-hitting questions, Dave. I love it.
I know. Well, that's one of those things that like you notice when I was so like outside the movie at that point because I was just like, why is this older girl just trying to beat the shit out of this kid? And then I was like, oh, they're sisters and she's just doing mean older sister shit. Got it.
Well, I also wanted to know why the woman, the mom, was being so mean throwing out a whole cake. But now I'm like, oh, but now it makes sense because it was for a confirmation and she doesn't believe in religion anymore. And that's a point of contention between her and her husband. Like, oh, like now looking back, I'm like, oh, it all makes sense. But at that point, I'm like, why is she being mean and won't let her kid have a piece of cake?
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other final thoughts?
No, I'm all set. I mean, it's a bit of a thinker, Martyrs Lane, but yeah.
I'm good.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next film then. The action thriller Kate.
Kate.
Yes. Starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead as an assassin who is poisoned and has 24 hours until she's going to die. So she needs to get revenge, find out what's going on, who poisoned her. And there we are.
I mean, she doesn't have to find those things out. She
feels compelled to.
And boy, does she find out. Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't read much about this. I didn't read anything about it before I saw it, but I've been reading some reviews. People are not digging this movie, the critics community at large.
That's a shame.
I mean, I didn't love it, but I also don't understand why people fucking hate it. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that too. I'm like, it's okay.
It's fun. I mean, it had some good, some of those fight sequences were fucking cool. Like the one in the
restaurant. That was a really good scene. I loved that.
Yeah.
They're, going between rooms, fighting in between rooms, getting knocked into rooms. I really liked the shift in perspective from like the overhead shot and seeing her fight two people. I like the way that the camera had this like it's almost like someone was grabbing the camera and like whipping it around just like she was getting whipped around in it. Like a force. I don't know how to describe it accurately, but you know what I'm saying. It's like the shift in perspective when she's thrown over onto the table or when she's fighting and gets like knocked around. I really enjoyed how the camera did that a few times in the movie.
I'm glad you
Me
brought
too.
that up because that definitely, maybe not as well, but it gave me very much Atomic Blonde vibes, like feeling like you're getting tossed around the way that she is. So yeah, no, I'm glad. I think you
thank you.
articulated it quite well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that kind of bummed me out about this is it was just so predictable. I mean, that's not bum me out. It's just if there's a problem that Kate has, it's that you can see the betrayal, whatever you want to call it, coming a billion
You mean
miles
the Woody
away.
Harrelson piece?
Not the fact.
I
the Woody
actually
Harrelson
liked.
thing, yeah.
I like that it wasn't quite what you were expecting because anytime you see this type of film, you've got this character who's been raised to be an assassin, and they have this mentor. In this case, Woody Harrelson was a mentor since childhood. You think, okay, well, that person's going to betray them, and he does betray her, but not in the way that you'd expect. The poisoning is something that someone else does. They jump the gun and poison her without his permission, and actually in a way that he was like, yeah, I didn't want her to leave, and I was willing to stop her if I had to, but what the hell, man? You jumped the gun and you poisoned her. That's not what I wanted. So I thought that was an interesting turn, that it was like an accidental thing. But then he's like, well, it's what's done is done. I'm on this side now, and I kind of have to stick to my guns.
Yeah. I also like, though, how at the end he totally sold out. Woody Harrelson totally sold out the other guys. Like, you two stay with him, you two come with me. And it's like, well, this fucking guy's dead. And then he gets gutted and his head sliced right off very quickly. Which I sort of appreciated the efficiency of that, by the way. It was just like, this guy's like, oh, fuck you, old man.
Yeah.
And then the old man's
old man takes out his samurai sword, and he's got his arm's been in a sling, and he cuts the sling off with the samurai sword. And it's like, okay, this guy means it's a bold move.
Yeah, that's a bold
This guy
move.
means business. And I also appreciate how quickly he dispatches the rival, because clearly that's not what you're here to see. Like, you're here to see the showdown between, Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Woody Harrelson. So let's not linger on this scene too long. Let's move on to, the main event.
Yeah. But it also underscores the whole idea that, this young guy who doesn't have respect for his elders is just so clearly outclassed by this guy. Like, you don't cut, to your point, Evan, you don't cut the sling off your arm after you've been shot unless you are deadly fucking serious and self-assured.
I also don't think you carry around a samurai sword unless you're deadly serious too.
Yeah. This guy was like, there's a reason old school shit works, and I'm going to show you why,
Yeah.
So,
I just want to point out, anybody who's in any kind of organized crime who is an older person, you probably don't want to fuck with, because they've probably, seen some shit.
They lived a long time through through organized crime. That's hard to stay alive in organized crime in the movies anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. The gory, violent action scenes were good. I liked the cinematography. Sometimes the violence kind of surprised me in a good way. It's like, sometimes like Kate was like,
all the knife play was great.
And Kate would get like really stabby, and I was like, oh, hello, which was interesting to see. And this is now our second film just in the past couple months of a woman assassin paired with a kid, very similar to Gunpowder Milkshake, whereas films usually pair a violent dude with a kid. And so it's kind of nice to see a gender role reversal with a woman. The thing I will say is that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is great. And she is the sole reason I wanted to see this film. And I was so excited to see it because I love her in everything. I especially love her in 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think she's great in that. And it's a very physical performance. And she gives a very physical performance here too, which is great. And she's great. But I think this needed a lot better writing. And I think that's probably its biggest downfall for me, is that it is so predictable and the characters are very thinly drawn. And they really try to force you to care about this connection between Kate and Ani. And, Ani is a kid, and Kate killed her father in a hit. And she's felt guilty ever since. And, she tries to get rid of Ani, but Ani has no family left. So, or doesn't think she does. So she tags along. And they're really trying to force this connection, which I just didn't really buy and didn't really feel. And So that was kind of disappointing. And the other thing that I just couldn't shake, and the film, to its credit, does address this, but the whole time I'm watching, it really bothered me that it was set in Japan, because it felt like it was exoticizing Japan, and it felt like it was othering it. Like, here's this white woman here. And I mean, yes, she lives there, and yes, she speaks the language, but there was just something off about it. But what I do really like is the old man with the sling samurai sword that we're talking about. I love that he talks about that to her, and talks about, I think Woody Harrelson's character, and talks about how they just take and exploit, and they just move on. And I kind of love that, because I felt like you could extrapolate that to being kind of like this white colonialist perspective of not coming in and not understanding cultures and just exploiting them. And I appreciated that the film at least had a kind of meta commentary about it. I just wish it had done it maybe a little bit better. But
I liked that exchange as well, and I like that, you know, that character we've been talking about, Kojima is his name, right? Kojima. He's the big bad,
Yeah.
like
Thank
he's
you.
the head of this triad family that's she's going after, and then she goes to kill him, and then finds out that he wasn't the one that poisoned her, and so they end up teaming up. So I like that dynamic, especially when they roll up to the building where, Ani is, and Woody Harrelson, and what's the other guy's name? Reiji, I think is the character's name. The guy who betrayed Kojima, and Renji. Yeah. And
Renji.
I love that they all just roll up together, guns blazing, and just take the building floor by floor. That's just really satisfying to watch. I see what you're saying, Megan. I didn't really see it as like a fetishization or like I don't know. I liked seeing the culture, the city. I thought that the cinematography showed kind of like a respect for the city, but also kind of like turning Tokyo into this kind of character, at least in the sense of like, okay, the world that we're in right now, we're looking at organized crime, we're looking at people, like stuff kind of happening in like the seedy underbelly of the city. So I love that there are all these like alleyways where they're hanging out, and like all this action takes place in this like really small like corridor, but like at the same time it's like shooting these shots from like the upper level of the alleys, and so you can kind of like see all these places and things and people that are happening maybe off the beaten path where most people wouldn't travel, if that makes sense. Like it's like there's like the tourist version where you're kind of on the main streets, but then there's like the real people are in these like small alleyways and sushi shops or whatever is going on there. I enjoyed it.
Oh, I think it was done well as far as like the cinematography goes. It just, there's something about it, because it also reminded me of many other action films that have Yakuza, and we have to have the geisha, and we have to have, anyway, it's just, there's a lot of tropes happening. And so, yeah, I would have liked to have seen a transcendence of tropes rather than a reification of tropes. But I do agree with you, Evan, that the way the action plays out in those alleyways works really well. I agree completely.
I prefer the stabby stuff, though. I mean, this movie is so stabby.
Brutal.
I mean,
the stabby stuff is really great. And I have to say, my favorite shot, and it is the shot that I first saw when this film was announced, is when Kate and you said, I love that you said, Evan, they're rolling up, and she's got that cat like kawaii, cute style shirt, and she's got the sunglasses, and she's smoking a cigarette coming in.
Yeah.
Going all the guys behind her with the guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved that. I was like, I don't know what's happening in this scene, but I need to see this movie. And yes, I loved that.
A couple other things I loved. I loved when she was fighting and she cut off her own hair to kill that guy. She just like took a huge lop.
Yes.
Huge chunk of her hair off with the knife that the guy was holding. Used it to kill him.
And
yeah,
cut off all of his fingers
great.
In the process.
And I love when she stole the car too, the like hot pink car, and it was just
loved that
driving through the city, and you get these like crazy overhead Grand Theft Auto style shots where she's like weaving in and out of lanes and going like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you're just thinking like, oh, she's gonna crash. Like there's no way she makes it out, and then she does, and the car rolls like 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great scene too.
I mean, completely unbelievable that she would escape that car accident as unscathed as she was. But okay, I mean, this movie's about a woman who's been poisoned and has 24 hours.
I'm
to kill a
thinking
bunch of
it's
people,
operating in the
whatever.
same kind of like heightened reality, but not quite so ridiculous as like, you know, it's like, okay, we're in this world now where we got 24 hours to live. It doesn't matter what happens in between the, you know, anything goes pretty much that can plausibly not kill you.
Yeah. I do like that she keeps having those injections that she got from the doctor at the hospital to keep her going. And we see her puke periodically because of the radiation poisoning. And yeah, I was just thinking, like, when we talked about the film Beckett, Evan, I think you said that, his character was like one of the most beaten up characters. I think
I think Kate has replaced Beckett in this case because she gets so beat up. Yeah. She's poisoned, stabbed, shot, you name it. Yes.
Gets shot in the face. Yes! Don't forget she gets shot in the face and leaves the bullet there in her cheekbone.
Yeah. And I mean, I appreciate that the film, she does die at the end of the movie. Like, she knows that she's going to die.
Me too.
And she dies. And I like that the movie doesn't, mess around about that. It actually does happen. And I don't know. I feel like,
and then the film ends. Like, that's
so
where it
many
ends.
Other movies would be really coy, like, oh, maybe she didn't die, or they would do that thing where like we think the audience that she dies, and then it's like 1 year later somehow she survived and is like doing just fine.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out that I appreciated is I don't think that they did it very smartly, because they had a whole bunch of those flashback scenes at the end where it's Woody Harrelson teaching her how to do certain things, and he's like, if you really want to like punish someone and really make them like personal death, shoot him in the gut. And then she shoots him in the gut, and it's like, I really, I don't know much about how like the body works after it's been shot, but I do know that if you get shot in the gut, that fucking sucks.
Yes.
So, I don't really think we have to explain it.
Once he gets shot, he does say, nice shot.
But all right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I wish if they were going to show that flashback, they would have done it earlier, or like kind of the midway point of the film. But I also don't think you needed that. Like, I don't think you needed any flashbacks of her training or her.
Some of them were just confusing. There was that scene where they showed it a couple times where she was at like a Jewish wedding or something like that, and she was supposed to kill a guy with a gun, but it wasn't loaded, and he took the gun and laughed at her, so she stabbed the shit out of him to kill him. It was weird.
Yes, very stabby.
Like, I get. Yeah, it was very strange like 3 or 4 that there was so little context other than this is just one of the many moments of her being tested in training, and Woody Harrelson really putting her in a bind.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought there were potentially better ways that could have been executed. Again, I think it comes down to the writing, and I think if the writing had been tighter, it would have been better. But I did enjoy this.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, it was fine for what it was.
Yeah. I was also very excited after seeing Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character in Birds of Prey. I was even more excited to see her carry an action film. And so I think could have been better written, but still entertaining and good.
Yeah.
Lots of good stabbing.
Well, she's just such a good performer.
Yeah,
I just wish that people used her better, She's underused. And a lot of times she's not used as well as she's just so much better than a lot of the stuff she appears in. It's kind of a bummer, but whatever.
It is a bummer, but I enjoyed this. I think more than you two. I was willing to forgive some of its writing flaws in the name of just really fun action and bright, sexy neon colors. It must be the 80s person in me.
See, I think if it had been more, and it's interesting because it has the same editor as John Wick. I think if it had been more Atomic Blonde, more John Wick, and not that those are the only action films out there, of course, but I think if it had been more stylistic, like pushed it even further, I think I would have enjoyed it more. I think I can forgive bad writing more if it's more stylistically and visually intriguing. So it wasn't, for me, it wasn't quite as visually compelling, but no, I liked this. I had a good time with it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely the three of us giving it more leeway,
more love and leeway.
than a lot of other critics out there. But hey, that happens on Spoiler Piece.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, definitely does. Okay, do we have any final thoughts?
Nah, I said it all.
Yeah,
for me,
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, let's talk about our final film of the show. Everybody's talking about Jamie.
Everybody is talking about Jamie in this movie, by the way. I mean, that's a totally accurate title.
Right.
And there's a song about it too.
There is. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a coming of age queer musical comedy drama. It is based on the play, the musical that was in, I believe, the West End, which is also based on a true story about a 16-year-old aspiring drag queen. And that's exactly what this is about. This is about Jamie, lives in England, and he's 16 years old. He is gay, and he aspires to be a drag queen. And that is what this film is about. And also about his friendship with his best friend, Pretty, and also how his mother is incredibly supportive of him, so supportive, and his father is an asshole who's completely unsupportive of him.
Yeah. That's
his dad's a giant unredeemable douche.
Yes.
Big time.
I mean, I was kind of mildly disappointed in the third act redemptions of Sharon Horgan's character and the douchey asshole kid Dean.
I was so disgusted with that.
It's just kind of like maybe she gets some, redemption because, she's got to tell you, she's like, she laid down and she can't. Whatever.
Yeah. I don't feel like she was really,
fuck that guy.
I don't feel like she was really, I feel like she just acquiesced to the crowd.
Gave up. Yeah.
Her character did annoy me. I mean, especially because it was weird because she was clearly not the principal, but was making decisions that the principal was like, I'm not, I'm just going to let her dictate what's going on.
Like the principal is like, no, you can wear a dress to prom. That's fine. She's like, no, you can't. And it's like, okay, he can't. It's like, what? I mean, Jesus. So you guys are going to be stunned.
Did you like
but
it?
I thought this was okay.
I am stunned.
You know why? And I think a big part of it is the musical. For one thing, for a musical, it actually doesn't have that many musical numbers. Or if it does, they're so far apart, you kind of forget that it's a musical every once in a while.
I did read that they actually took out several songs that are in the stage musical. And I think that actually was effective because I agree with you. I think one of the reasons why I liked it was that the songs felt more spread out. So it didn't feel like it was kind of like pushing in or, or trying to overstuff the movie.
Right.
I do think, though, some of the musical numbers, like the transitions to them, felt a little clunky, and we're basically just like emulating what happens when you see this as a stage show. It's just like there's that, the musical, like the beats start happening, and you're like, okay, I know we're going into the musical number now. It to me felt clumsy in the way that it works on stage, but it feels weird when you're in film and you're kind of doing the same like intro or like kind of like way of gearing up for the song.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I actually felt that this was an incredibly run-of-the-mill musical, and the songs are catchy. I will give it that. But I felt the lyrics were so banal. I was just like, they're terrible. So I was very disappointed in that regard.
I think you're right about the lyrics. I think though that like they were hooky though, which it's kind of you can forgive a lot if a song is hooky. And what I appreciated about this, now granted, I don't see as many musicals as you guys do because you know how I feel about them generally, but I was kind of surprised that the songs were so contemporary pop. Most of them, I mean, some of them definitely had their theater elbows in there. But most of these felt like they could have been like top 40 songs right now. Or a couple years ago when they were first written or whatever. I didn't get a lot of the I didn't get a lot of people kicking up their elbows or throwing out their elbows. I should say, you don't kick up your elbows. That's stupid.
But you could, and that would look really weird.
Yeah. And I also, the one musical number that was, I thought, truly effective was when Richard E. Grant was, who plays an older drag queen.
Hugo.
I was going to say former, but he does perform.
Mhm.
Hugo. When he he shows Jamie, and this is what the 80s was like,
Oh
and this
my
is why
God.
drag queens
That's
were
my
a big
favorite
deal.
scene.
And that
Whoa.
was like kind of heartbreaking, that whole thing.
It
That
destroyed
is so
me.
well edited and well done. I love that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really, I love the way that they do it, the way he puts in the VHS tape. And
Yes.
then we see all these, scenes that are like home movies, and they're both superimposed into them and like transported into the moment, and seeing, their life in the 80s and, protest and, the struggle of, just being like, Jamie, these are your queer elders, and like these are all the struggles that we went through. And like, as much as we had, highs, we had lows too. And that whole number I thought was really effective, but also I found it wasn't in the stage show. It was a new song for this musical, or for the movie, which I thought was like really effective.
Maybe that's why it stands out so much.
I think it was
Yeah, 'cause
edited
it's exceptional.
effectively and done really effectively, and really it wrecked me. That number.
Yeah.
It really felt like a punch, and I felt, I just like on the verge of tears watching it. I had to
I was
collect
sobbing.
myself for a
I
moment.
did
Yeah,
cry.
I was
And it
sobbing.
ended.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just the whole, like, the 80s HIV, just anything with that just immediately makes me sob.
Mhm.
So, it was really effective. And having someone like Richard E. Grant, who's so talented
good.
and so wonderful.
That's my big problem. This
That-
film doesn't have enough Richard E. Grant.
Well, yeah. And also, that number is so good, and it is so much as I did like a couple of the other numbers. It's so much better
Yes.
than all of the
Yes.
other numbers. You afterward, like the first couple songs, you're like, all right, this is okay. And then this one comes along, kind of blows you out the back of the theater.
Mhm.
And then you have the rest, and it's like, okay, these don't quite stack up the same way. I mean, I still kind of, I'm glad that Jamie, the Max Harwood who plays Jamie, is so good in the role, because I think this movie sort of lives and dies on how good that actor is. So, yay, Max Harwood. And I also liked his relationship with his best friend Pretty, who is a Muslim English kid. I don't know how to say. You would say Muslim American, but would you say Muslim English? I don't know. She's a Muslim. And she's like the smart kid, and she's, and she loves him and he loves her. And I just thought their relationship was sweet. And also how, even though she was supportive of him, there were moments where she's like, maybe think about what you're doing here, which I think friends do when they don't quite understand what their other friend is doing. So I
or they're like, I don't quite understand it, but give me some time and I think I'll wrap my head around it. Like at first when he shows her the bright sparkly red shoes that his mom has gotten him for his birthday, she's like, I don't think I quite get it just yet. Tell me more.
Yeah.
But I love that she asks really great, sensitive questions, and that she's still supportive, even though she doesn't get it.
Yes.
Yeah. She's a good friend.
Yes.
Yeah. And like I was saying earlier, I didn't buy the third act. I'll sign on to Evan's, Sharon Horgan sort of acquiesced more than she was redeemed. But I appreciated the fact that in a movie where it has a happy ending and lots of characters who don't deserve a happy ending get one, meaning those two.
I agree.
The father is just a fucking straight up douchebag prick, and he is irredeemable.
Yeah.
And that's, I appreciate that you have one character who's like, no, I'm an ass and I'm going to stay an ass, because that happens.
Played by the great
so
Ralph Ineson.
It's a good thing it's played by Ralph Ineson too, because if it was somebody without his charisma, you'd just be like, I want this person to be in a ditch by the end of this movie. But he just like walks off
right
into a soccer or a football stadium.
He is, yeah, he is believable in that shitty macho dad. I don't understand how to relate to gay son. I don't know. I think that was effective. Some of the musical numbers, like the ones where they're kind of like the flashbacks to the dad finding him putting on makeup, I don't know if those really all worked for me. They felt kind of heavy-handed, but his performance in the scenes where there were dialogue, I think, did work. And one thing that I didn't love, I feel like this was for me the one major thing that didn't work, was the fight with his mom. It didn't feel necessary.
Agreed.
It felt contrived. It felt unnecessary. They could have cut it out completely and still had the scene where he, storms off and it goes on the soccer field and that whole situation with his dad. I like, it just did not need to happen. His mom was clearly so supportive. There was no need for him to be fighting with her in any way, shape, or form. They could have just cut that out entirely and the movie would have been better for it.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I didn't like the song she sang about "He's My Boy," and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I didn't, it was completely unnecessary. And it just, like you said, it was contrived and it felt like it was just trying to force conflict just for the sake of more drama. And it was completely not necessary because this is an interesting story on its own. And
this movie had a lot of drama on its own.
Right. Like the fact that Jamie is an openly gay 16-year-old kid, that's interesting in and of itself. And that's, and the fact that on top of it, he wants to be a drag queen in a small town, that's also interesting. Like, and his friendship with Brittany and his friendship with Hugo, like those are interesting. And his supportive mother, like we don't need more fake drama. So I completely agree. It was ridiculous. I was very lukewarm on this film, sadly, because I was excited to see it because I'm always excited to see queer stories, especially queer coming of age stories, because we need more of them. I will say the things I did like. I really love that Max Harwood is actually a queer person playing a queer character, which is great. Mm-hmm. This is in my mind, especially because Richard E. Grant, does a wonderful performance as a gay man in Can You Ever Forgive Me? And he's playing a gay man again. And he did an interview with The Advocate where he said he didn't want to do that anymore. He thinks that only queer people should play queer characters and not a straight man like he is. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I'm curious if after this film he will hold to that. But regardless, not to diminish that sentiment, because it's always great, I think, when queer actors do portray queer characters, because unfortunately, so often it is straight people who get awarded with accolades for playing queer characters. But I think Richard E. Grant is wonderful, and he is such a delight, and he is such an incredibly gifted actor that I love seeing him in this. And like I said earlier, I think that's a big detriment for me, was that there was not more of him, because I always crave more of him because he's just so damn good.
Yeah.
For me, the big problem was the musical numbers. I mean, I do love musicals, and this was just so kind of ho-hum for me, but with the exception of the added song, which is so good. Yeah. I wish they had all been on that level because it was so, so good.
It was.
The other thing I will say, this is a small thing, but something I do really like, and I always love seeing it. It gets me very nerdy and excited. I love when we see bisexual lighting. I love bisexual lighting in film. It's great. It's my favorite thing. And I love it because it, signals queer themes, of course, but it also often signals fantasy or fantastical realms. And I love that we see the bisexual lighting in the first musical number when Jamie is kind of having an imaginary fantasy in his head about his burgeoning career as a performer and a drag performer. And I kind of love that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really loved in this movie was the choreography and the cinematography / lighting. I thought was really well done. I loved the scene where the cafeteria transformed into this kind of into a prom, but also this, epic nightclub. And I just thought that was really well done. And so I think in places where maybe the lyrics weren't as strong, the hookiness, like you were saying, Dave, and both the choreography and cinematography and like costume design and everything just came together in such a way for me that it just was compelling and seizing my attention in a way that I was enjoying myself.
Yeah. There were a couple things I wanted to point out that kind of bugged me, though, about so the movie takes place in Sheffield, and the movie pretends that Sheffield is not like a major English city. I mean, it's not London, and it's, only about 500,000 people or something like that. But Sheffield,
That's still a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. Def Leppard's from Sheffield. The Arctic Monkeys are from Sheffield. Paul Carrick, Joe Cocker. They've got a big football team. The fucking World Snooker Championships have been there a bunch of times. There's a lively theater scene. So the whole idea that, fucking Sheffield, yes, it is, I guess you could call it a working class city. But at the same time, it's not like it's a fucking middle of nowhere dud. I mean, I thought that I don't know if they're counting on like Americans who this is clearly aimed at wouldn't know that, or if they, I don't know what the reasoning is, but Sheffield's not just like some podunk town, which the movie kind of portrays it as. I don't know. I thought that was weird, but hey, what do I know? I'm American, and this is a movie that takes place in England, so maybe it is that tiny and shitty. Who knows?
Yeah, I was going to say, and since it's based on a true story, maybe, I don't know.
Well, no, I buy that there's all the sort of like adversarial crap that Jamie had to go through and slight of like backwards thinking and things like that. But, it's, 500,000 people is a lot of people, and
that's true.
It's, it has a skyline. Like if you see Sheffield, it's not like it's just, a bunch of tiny bits. It has a skyline. So it's a real city. It was just strange to me.
No, that's fair. But there is a lot of homophobia and queerphobia, even in small cities.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying it just felt strange, If it had taken place on in some farming community in like Western England, I would have or in Wales, sure, that I'd buy. But this was like, I don't know. It's probably it's a smaller quibble than I'm making it out to be, but
No, but I'm actually glad you brought it up because I don't know anything about Sheffield, so I'm glad you did.
Well, the only reason I know anything about Sheffield is because of all of the fucking famous musicians who have come from there.
Clearly.
And I think I can't remember, but I think Eddie Izzard is from Sheffield. So, I should look that up before I say that definitively. But,
yeah, I think I know what you're saying, Dave. Like, I don't know the area, but they do kind of paint it as having the kind of vibe. I don't know if either of you have seen the show, the HBO show We're Here, where they travel around to, small town America and put on drag shows. But
that show.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that vibe going on from this movie,
yes.
Like the small town Britain version of it, basically.
Yeah. And I just looked this up, and Eddie Izzard went to the University of Sheffield. It doesn't say whether he's from there originally. So there.
No, but he at least spent some time there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, did we have any other final thoughts?
My final thought is more just a note. I love that I observed in the dressing room a box that was labeled tit box. And I thought that was funny, especially when later Jamie said, "I don't have any tits." And Richard E. Grant said, "Just use the tit box."
The tit box. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I also, again, we're coming back to Moonstruck on the Patreon, another makeover in a film. And I liked seeing the drag transformation.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was, and it was quite the transformation too. When you see the final product, oh my God, Jamie looks incredible.
Yeah, less draggy than I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like less ostentatious kind of,
over the top
gaudy
kind of
femininity.
Makeup. Right.
Yeah, but he was just gorgeous. But yes, but I will say what I do like, because I know I've been hard on this film, I do like that it's a very, very loving ode to drag and performance. And I love listening to Hugo talk about the importance of drag and being fearless and, how much that's needed.
Agree.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's do a recap. So Martyrs Lane is on Shudder, and would we say see it?
Sure.
Evan?
I feel I'm a little more on the fence, but I think I trend toward see it.
Okay. And I would definitely say enthusiastically see it. Kate is on Netflix. And I forgot to mention this. It is directed by Cedric Nicholas Troyan. And would we recommend this?
Yeah, I would. Screw everybody who doesn't like it.
Yeah, screw those people. I would absolutely say see this. It's exactly my kind of movie, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I would also say see it. All right, and everybody's talking about Jamie, which is directed by Jonathan Butterill. It is in theaters today, and it will be on Amazon Prime on September 17th. Would we say to see it?
Yes.
I think you have to like musicals, but yeah. Well, I don't like musicals, but I'd like, yes, see it.
It's good. I enjoy it as both a fan of drag and a person who mostly likes musicals more than.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love musicals, as you guys know, and I was less enthusiastic about it than you guys. But the drag is great, although I wish there had been even more drag. I want more. But the drag is good. And Richard E. Grant is always a reason alone to see anything. So yes, I would say maybe you don't need to run to the theater to see it, but definitely see it when it's on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's going to do it for this week. We want to give a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clammer. Otto, thank you so much for making us sound great week after week.
Thank you, Otto.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. We are everywhere. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can also find us on social media. We're all over the place. We're at Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook and at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd. So come follow us on all of the social media places. And we would love to hear from you. We love hearing from you on social media, and we also would love to hear it if you wanted to email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can call us
at 862-21-PEACE.
Yeah, call us, email us, leave us a voicemail message, text us. Let us know, what did you think of the movies? Did you think Kate was amazing? Did you not? What about the other films? We always love hearing from you. And if you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. You can also rate us on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out tremendously, gets the word out about the show. And if you really, really like the show, consider joining our Patreon if you're not already a member. This week, we talked about the rom-com Moonstruck, and we put out bonus episodes every week exclusively for our patrons. You also get to vote in polls. And we have a great time.
We do.
Indeed.
And I also want to add, for our Patreon, you also get access to our back catalog. And we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 plus bonus episodes for you to listen to. So in addition to the 374 episodes we've done for the main show, there's an additional almost 200 episodes of films that we've talked about. So definitely you'll get bang for your buck if you sign up.
That's true. Great point. Thank you for mentioning that. And most of those bonus episodes are about 25 minutes long. So you're getting some great content there.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much to those of you who already are patrons. Thank you so much to our listeners. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And my name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. And you can follow me on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Instagram as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.